at the district or the council level, obviously. So, and again, I apologize, I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see this. But there's a home page when you first log in, there's a conference calendar, you'll see things like visits that have been scheduled. Visits dynamically show up on the calendar when you put in the visit details on a request, so you don't have to go and update the calendar too. They'll just magically show up there. And all of your conference members would see the same calendar. You can see some messages up here. Some messages can be generated for your members to see on the homepage. This one says reminder, call to serve this weekend. This one says that here are some release notes you could click on. And then you have a recent neighbors and recent assistance request list here. These are user specific. So if Margaret logged in and basically logged into Serveware, and her homepage would show the recent neighbor households or requests that she had worked with. If someone else logged in, they would see a different list here. This is just for convenience to get back to the people you've worked with recently. And then as I mentioned, we have a lot of setup or configuration options. So we have an option called follow-up support here. You can turn on follow-ups for neighbors. So say you help somebody with rent and they've got a new baby in the household or they've lost their job. Instead of waiting for them to call you 3 months from now when they need help again, you could say, let's call this family next week and see what's going on. So you can turn that on. We also have something called direct payment voucher quantity. So if you want to track gift cards, grocery cards, anything that you want to keep track of from an inventory perspective in your conference, you can assign assistance types as direct payment voucher types, and you can track their quantity on hand on the home page as well as where those have been distributed to, okay? So let's talk about neighbors. So this is what you do on a day-to-day basis. So the neighbors page here, these are all the neighbors associated with this demo conference. I know you can't see this really well, but you can do paging here. You can search by date of birth. You can search by a last name. So if you knew somebody's last name was Flintstone, you could start typing in Flintstone. If you knew the last 4 of their phone number was 3211, you could start typing that in. A lot of different ways you can search for the neighbor. And then you can edit their record if they already exist. If you want to search for beyond the primary neighbor's information, you can actually search the household members here too. So if you have put in individual household details like the names of their children or the last 4 of a social or something like that, you can search for that as well. And so basically then once you find a neighbor, you can click a new request here. You'll notice there's a little red information icon. I know, again, you can't see this that well. This is what's called an alert note. So on a neighbor record, you could put some special information on the record to say, hey, there's something special about this household that I want other people in my conference to be aware of. This could be, say, this one says contact treasurer before providing assistance. This one says review with treasurer before assisting. No additional assistance in 2025. So anything that's important to convey to your other conference members, you can add in as an alert note here and generate this little icon. And then over here on the right, there's a history folder button. So if you hover over that, that'll give you the date of the last assistance you provided to this household. And then if you click on this, it'll actually take you to the history tab on the neighbor record. And then you can see some totals here for current fiscal year, previous year, all requests over time. You can turn on other historical total options as well, like 6 months, 3 months. And then below that in chronological order are all the requests that have occurred. You'll see their status here, whether the person was referred to another conference or agency, who was assigned to the visit from your conference members, and then request notes and visit notes. Now, this is a demo conference, so there's not many notes in here, but you can put up to 8,000 characters of notes in any of the note fields in Serveware. So you can get very, very detailed about their situation, their family situation, what their employment situation, health, anything that you need to collect. And then you can always click on the view button here to see more details about that specific request. Below the high level details, if any assistance was provided, you'll see that detail. So this one says rent of $350. The check number was 4563. The date provided was 3/21/25. So a lot of information you can put for each individual type of assistance that's added. Now, when you're on the neighbor record, oh, I clicked on the wrong button. I clicked on home there. So if I click edit here, you're on the general tab of the neighbor, and this is essentially similar to your call records. Now, it might not look exactly like your call record, but it's going to have a lot of demographic information that you can enter. 99% of this information is not required, and we always tell conferences in areas around the country, not one conference in the country puts all this information in, not one. If you did, So you'd be 2 days on each request. So, yeah. So basically, you can put in names, address information, homeless details, phone numbers, and so on, email, employer information. Most of this is, again, optional, but sometimes it's helpful. You know, if you can put in ethnicity, that might be useful in a grant application. Or age range. If you put in the birth date here, it'll calculate the age, it'll determine the age of the individual. Yes?
Is there ways to hide some of these fields so they don't see unfold? Because we have people, older demographic, this is
Right.
just way too much, and can you skinny it down to just the bare minimum they would need? We would probably get better adoption.
Yeah, and we haven't done that restrictive of a view so far. Now, we haven't had really a lot of pushback, because what a lot of areas will do is when we're onboarding conferences, they will put together a 1 or 2 page guidelines for their call takers. And they'll highlight fields and they'll say, we collect these 7 fields, and then the others are all optional. Now, we may add in the ability to restrict additional fields. There's obviously that'll be more configuration that has to be done, you know, for conference admins and things like that. Technically, it could be possible. It's just not been something we've been asked to do a lot of the time. So, and then you had a question?
Yes, you know, when we visit the Friends in Need, we scan your photographs, your rental agreement and all that.
Oh, can it be uploaded?
Can you take that and
Right.
scan it and put it into?
Yeah, great question. So in addition to the demographics here, I'll just talk real briefly with these other tabs. So you can put in incomes and expenses here as much as you want. We'll calculate the totals for you here. You can indicate their public assistance, your household members. You can put in either the number of adults and children, or alternatively, you can put in the individual details down here, and we'll calculate the adults and children for you. Most conferences prefer to put in the individuals because, as you can see, you can put a lot more information in. But some conferences just don't have the time or resources to do that, so they might just put in 2 adults and 3 children, and that's fine. We'll use those numbers or the numbers for the individuals entered in the reporting to determine number of adults and children that have been assisted. Okay, and then you have accounts here for utility accounts, and then you have the files area here. So this files area, this is where you can upload any type of file that's useful for the household. So it could be a rental agreement, it could be a release of information document, it might be a picture of a driver's license that you want to upload. And as I mentioned earlier, you can use server on any device. So we've seen where members will go out and they'll be doing a home visit. They'll use their smartphone and they'll take a picture of the driver's license on the home visit. They'll log into Servware on their phone and they'll go to the neighbor record and they'll upload that picture to the neighbor record. Now, we also have files that can be uploaded on the requests themselves. I'll show you that briefly here in a moment. So say you have a receipt for a utility or a car repair and you want to upload that receipt right on the specific request for a certain date, you can upload that on the request as opposed to the household, okay? We have special program support here. So if your conference does things like back to school supplies, summer camps, Christmas, baskets, toy drives, you can define those programs as an administrator in Servware, and you can assign neighbor households to those and do reporting on who's part of the program, how many people have received assistance for it, who's a candidate, who's confirmed, and so on. And then the follow-up, as I mentioned, that you can put in follow-ups here, and then your history. Now, I did want to show you, like, for this neighbor here, say we're reviewing, they called in on our helpline, and we don't have any information to change here. By the way, I'll click on map here. So I clicked on map, and then that's the overlay there. It shows where their address is. And like I said, we're going to have conference boundaries around that too.
Could you be able to show it in like the picture of that, like the street view, or maybe like even just the satellite image instead of just that?
We could. We haven't been asked to do that. I'm sure we could do that because the APIs that we use support all those different levels.
That's not very useful for us so far.
Okay, well, we've got a lot of feedback. They love that, so we haven't heard that. But
Boundaries would be great, but
yeah. So it's possible. I mean, technologically, it's possible. We just, again, every meeting we go to or every event, we always hear new things to add, which is not a big deal. We love it. So yes.
As for assistance, when you were asking, is assistance given by month? Does that pop up so that all the members, all the team leaders can see how much assistance you've given? I mean, look, we live in California, right?
Yeah.
If we help with the budget for rent, that's a big hit to our budget.
Sure.
And we do it by month. So we would want that to pop up.
Right.
Right, so that everybody can see, okay, we have exceeded, we cannot,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
something, either we help. or-
That data is available, I can show it, yeah. so,
Okay.
yeah.
We haven't been able, like, aside from certain users, to show who can see that data. So we've been putting a message up every week. This is how much funds we have left. This is how much funds we have left. Every week, we put a message up and emails it to them
Yeah.
as well.
Oh,
One of the things you can do related, and don't want to tangent, off on too much of a tangent, but if you have the financial functions turned on, you can have a running balance basically
Okay, yeah,
that's
that's what we
displayed.
do. Okay.
That'll show you how many, what funds you have based on the
For all
assistance.
users?
For all users, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's-
So let me show you
I just
real-
wanted to
okay,
make
yes.
sure that
Just
that
real
was
quick,
part
just
of
as
it.
you can search on the people you serve, can you do a search for services provided? So if a conference puts like a legal firm that they work with, or,
Mhm.
food assistance, or et cetera.
You can, yeah, and I'll show you, let me show you that here in just a moment. So, real quick, let me show you. So if I'm on a neighbor record here, and the way Server is structured is you create a household record and then you create requests over time. So in your conference, you would never have more than one household record, even if addresses change, phone numbers change over time. When you create an individual request, we actually copy information over from the household record to the request, so it's a snapshot in time. So if you go back and look at those different history requests, they may look completely different from the number of household members, the address, and so on. So if I create a new request here, very easy to do. Basically, it goes to open status, today's date. I can change this. Maybe they called in yesterday, and then I could say rent, and then save this. And then once I've saved it, it's copied over some things like the incomes and expenses for reference, the household members, and there's an assistance tab here. And so this is where essentially if you needed to add assistance, you would add assistance types. So I would just go down here, I'd find rent here, and this is a lot of assistance types. It's a demo conference. I can pick a landlord optionally here for reference, and then I could put in value, whatever this is, and I'm kind of streamlining everything here. Put in a check number here as well, and then I could do save or save plus if I had multiple to put in. Yes?
Once that's done, do we have to go to expenditures next so that it shows up on our reporting?
No, that's already an expenditure in the background. It's created an expenditure entry.
So for some reason, we were told to do it twice then.
No, then you're double counting.
Double.
Yeah, you're
That's
double.
why we're having issues. Okay.
Yeah, so we can help you with that. But yeah, that's one of the things we try to explain is if you put assistance in, you shouldn't be putting assistance in again in the expenditures area. That's already counting as an expense for your conference.
Thank you.
Yes.
Once we generate the report, is there a place for signature? Because we have to sign, the district has to sign to give it to the council.
We don't have, are you talking about the annual report or?
No, for assistance to an individual.
We haven't heard of that request. I mean, we could possibly do that, but, different regions do things differently. Yeah, we haven't heard that particular one, but again, we're open to new functionality, yes.
You didn't know this was gonna turn into a user acceptance conference?
No, I didn't. I should move my flight to tomorrow.
I would suggest you put color around the boundaries.
Oh, of the conferences?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
Really good.
We use that for our Google boundaries.
And an approval process like what he's talking about.
Yeah, we've got an approval process at the conference level. We haven't incorporated district or council level users yet, but because the requirements were just for conference members, but that's available already in Server if you turn that on. You're welcome. So let me show you real quick here. On your request, if you put in visits here, you can specify any different type of visit here. I'm going to say a home visit just for example purposes. I can pick some of my conference members here. Later on, I can put in mileage or hours associated with the visit if I'd like to do that. And then I'm just going to mark this, I'm going to say it took place today, and I'm just going to mark it complete here. And then I'm actually going to mark this request as completed because I just wanted to show you a couple reports real quick. By the way, there's a referral section down here too. You can refer out to different agencies and other conferences or track referred from sources as well. So on the request tab here, if you go to the request page, this looks very similar to your neighbors page, but these are the requests that have actually been generated over time. So say you were off for a week and you come back in and you said, okay, I'm on call this week, log into Serveware, you'd probably go to the request page because you'd want to say, okay, what's been going on the last several days in our conference? And you'd see, okay, we had a request that was completed, request date from Thursday for Don and Ann, that's been completed. We got a call back from April 28th. One was completed back in April. But at a glance here, you can see all the different requests that have taken place over time. And you can do some filters here by status, if you want to look for ones in callback status or specific visits. You can do a search by assistance here. Somebody asked earlier, can you search by certain assistance types or providers? This search by assistance here, you can say, I want to see everybody that received car maintenance or repair, and it defaults to the current fiscal year, so you can change this to, you know, back in time. And there's none in that, so let's pick something like rent here. There we go. So there's a bunch of rent that have occurred, and you can export this information and things like that, but you can pick a specific provider, yeah.
But can you actually put in, like, if you want to recommend like a law firm that helps with immigration, or if you want to put in an auto mechanic that
Yeah.
provides services to
Yeah.
low income?
Yeah, if you're under the view refer, there's a lot of view menu options I won't have time to talk about, but under view referral agencies or organizations, you can filter by categories. So you could have like a legal category, a mental health category, and assign the different categories through your different referral agencies. We can also import those for you. So like in some areas, they have 200 or 300 referral agencies or organizations with different categories, and we'll import those in to kind of jumpstart everything. But let me show you a couple reports here because I'm about out of time. This activity summary report here, somebody was asking, where can you see like by month some information? So this activity summary report will give you a lot of categories. Again, I know you can't see it, but by month and then year to date will give you things like calls received, households helped, adults and children, parishioners, non-parishioners, homeless, repeat neighbors, new neighbors, all your visit counts and people helped. And then each assistance type in alphabetical order will be shown here for how much was distributed for each month and then year to date. So say you were interested in rent, you can scroll down alphabetically here to the rent. You can see we've given out $10,457 in rent this year, and we gave out, oh, I'm on the wrong line. You know, in this month we gave out $1,600, $750, $700, and so on. Yes.
Your list here, if you go to the scroll up to the top, see how it has like the category October and stuff like that. You need to. Could we get it so it follows us down when we're scrolling down?
Yeah.
We can, that's a
Yeah.
big pain.
All right. Okay. Yes.
Can you customize reports? Because we have to do a daily report of how many people we feed, adults, children, and how many in the household. We have to report daily.
You can run them by date range. You can change the date range. Like you can run this activity detail report. You can do that by assistance type or by all assistance types. You can just run it for one day, and it will give you some totals.
Can you run a non-duplicate just for the month?
We don't do non-duplicate yet. We hadn't been requested to do that. So, and again, you can always export your data out, and then you could manipulate it in Excel or Google Sheets or some other application.
One more question.
Sure.
On the income, do you have all the different classifications of retirement or salary, wages?
You can
Children?
You can create your own income levels if you want. You can turn that on if you like. That's another option. So a lot of the reports here, you can see we have literally dozens of reports. The one I wanted to mainly show you here to wrap up is the conference activity report. This is essentially the annual report. And so if I view this, these are actually generated either as PDFs or in Excel, either one you prefer. And then it'll tell you for the time period. It'll give you some high-level information about the conference at the top. All your membership statistics, like by ethnicity and age range, your total membership, comparative membership, and then you have your treasurer's report with your balance, your receipt categories assigned to your national categories, your expenses and totals. You can actually calculate your ending balance based on the receipt total and expenditure total now too, if you select that option when you run the report. You can do your visit counts here as well, all the visit types, number of people helped, in-kind counts as well, and then by services and goods, and then your hours and mileage. So these match all the annual report sections. We're actually making some minor changes right now to support the 2025 format. We've already made a number of changes, but we've got a few more minor ones to support as well. So I've got a car picking me up in about 10 or 15 minutes, so I apologize.
Thank you.
Yeah, so again, I have brochures here and cards. I'll leave those there. And share them with other members of your district council or your conference. Yes. Absolutely, yeah, my phone number's on there, and we'd be glad